That why oil could hit $170, the Iran blockade. Nobody expected 20%. That's how much of the world's entire oil supply passes through a single stretch of water just 21 miles wide. One narrow corridor, one choke point, and right now, it's closed. The most important shipping lane on the planet has become a battlefield, and the shockwaves are hitting every household on Earth. Gas prices are climbing, markets are bleeding, and a US naval blockade that nobody saw coming has just made everything dramatically worse. Economists are using a word they almost never use: catastrophe. Some are putting a number on it, $170 a barrel, and in the next 8 minutes, you'll find out exactly why. The Strait of Hormuz sits between Iran and the Arabian Peninsula. It connects the Persian Gulf to the open ocean. Every single day, roughly 20 million barrels of oil and liquefied natural gas flow through it, bound for Europe, Asia, and the Americas. It is, without exaggeration, the jugular vein of the global economy. Iran sits on its northern shore, and Iran has always known this. For decades, Tehran has treated the Strait as its ultimate bargaining chip, its final card, the one move that could bring the entire world to attention in a single afternoon. On February 28, 2026, that card gets played. The United States and Israel launch coordinated airstrikes deep inside Iran. Military installations, government buildings, and in a strike that reshapes the entire Middle East overnight, the supreme leader is killed. Iran's government doesn't collapse, it ignites. Within hours, missiles are in the air, drones darken the sky, and the Strait of Hormuz, the world's most critical waterway, slams shut. The global reaction is immediate and violent, not military violence, economic violence. Brent crude, the international benchmark for oil prices, sits at around $70 a barrel the morning of the strikes. Within days, it crosses $100. Stock markets from Tokyo to London to New York go into freefall. Airlines start cancelling routes. Shipping companies reroute tankers thousands of miles out of their way. Governments begin quietly stockpiling fuel reserves. But then everything changed. Pakistan steps in. In a move that surprises every major intelligence agency on the planet, Islamabad offers itself as a neutral mediator. It's an audacious move for a nation walking a geopolitical tightrope, and against all odds, it works, at least for a moment. On April 8th, a ceasefire takes hold. Fragile, temporary, but real. The world exhales. Then the talks begin. In Islamabad, US Vice President Vance and Iran's foreign minister sit across from each other for 21 consecutive hours. 21 hours of arguments, proposals, counter-proposals, and silence. Iran reportedly offers significant concessions: no nuclear weapons, 20 years of enrichment restrictions, surrender of fissile material, an end to proxy network funding. In exchange, they want sanctions relief, security guarantees, and war reparations. It is the closest the two sides have come to peace in decades, and then it falls apart. Iran's parliament speaker goes on record: the Americans had excessive demands and constantly changing positions. The US side counters that Iran is stalling. Vice President Vance tells reporters the ball is in Iran's court. Pakistan quietly signals it is ready to organize a second round of talks. Diplomats on both sides believe a deal is still possible. No one sees what comes next. On the night of Sunday, April 12th, President Trump does not call an emergency session of Congress. He does not convene a press conference in the White House briefing room. He posts on Truth Social. And in that post, he announces a full naval blockade of Iranian ports and the Strait of Hormuz, effective 10 a.m. the following morning. 15 U.S. warships deploy. The USS Abraham Lincoln Carrier Strike Group, 11 destroyers, the USS Tripoli Amphibious Assault Group, the most powerful naval force assembled in the region in years, positioned at the throat of global oil supply. Trump's post adds one more line: any Iranian fast attack boat that approaches will be and this is the exact word used, immediately eliminated. What happened next shocked the world. Britain says no. Germany says no. France says no. Spain's defense minister calls the blockade senseless. These are not adversaries speaking. These are America's closest allies, and they don't stop at refusing to join. Britain, France, and a coalition of 40 nations begin organizing their own parallel response, not to enforce the blockade, but to work around it, to challenge it. On Monday morning, as the blockade goes live, Brent crude spikes another 7%. It hits $102 a barrel before noon. Two tankers, the Rich Starry and the Austria, turn back from the Strait. Both are sailing under false flags. One is registered to Malawi, one to Botswana. Neither country has a coastline. The shadowy, sanctions-busting architecture of Iran's wartime oil trade is suddenly visible to the entire world. This is where the story reaches its breaking point. China enters the equation. And when China speaks, the math of this entire crisis changes completely. 90% of Iran's oil exports flow to China. 90%. Beijing has spent years building energy relationships with Tehran specifically to reduce its dependence on US-aligned supply chains. The American naval blockade isn't just targeting Iran's economy now. It is directly threatening China's energy security. And China does not stay quiet. Beijing calls the blockade irresponsible and dangerous. It warns Washington not to interfere in Chinese trade agreements. The language is diplomatic in tone, but absolute in meaning. China will not accept this. Russia echoes the warning. Energy markets, Moscow says, will be negatively impacted. The international community is watching. Iran's military goes further. Tehran's commanders issue a direct statement. If Iranian ports are threatened, no port in the Persian Gulf will be safe. That is not a metaphor. That is a declaration covering Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Kuwait, and Qatar, some of the most important energy infrastructure on the planet. Here is what the numbers now look like. Iran was earning an estimated $13 billion per month in oil revenue because of elevated wartime prices. The blockade cuts that off, but cutting it off also cuts the global supply. And Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, and the International Energy Agency all begin running the same terrifying scenario. If Iran retaliates militarily, if IRGC fast attack boats re-engage, if Houthi forces in Yemen are reactivated to close the Bab el-Mandeb Strait in the Red Sea, if Saudi pipeline routes come under attack, the world faces a two-strait crisis simultaneously. Both of the primary exit points for Gulf energy sealed at once. In that scenario, some economists put crude oil at $170 a barrel. For context, $170 oil means $7 or $8 gasoline in the United States. It means heating bills in Europe doubling overnight. It means fertilizer costs for farmers in South Asia becoming unaffordable. It means food prices rising everywhere on Earth because modern agriculture runs on energy. A $170 oil shock does not just slow the global economy, it breaks it, and the legal dimension makes everything more volatile. Under international law, a naval blockade is an act of war. Every legal scholar agrees on this. Yet this one is declared through a social media post, with Congress on a 2-week recess, without a vote, without a hearing, without authorization. House Democrats attempt 4 times to force a war powers vote. 4 times Republicans block it. The world's most powerful democracy is going to war without its legislature. The consequences arrive fast and from every direction. The IEA's executive director issues a stark warning. Even if this conflict ends tomorrow, global energy markets may not return to normal for 2 years. 2 years of elevated prices, 2 years of economic drag, 2 years of political fallout landing on dining room tables and fuel pumps across the democratic world. NATO's credibility takes serious damage. An alliance built on collective decision-making watches its most powerful member launch a major military action that its core European partners openly oppose. The gap between Washington and its traditional allies widens in ways that will take years to close, if they close at all. Iran, paradoxically, is not entirely losing this war economically. The elevated oil prices that the conflict itself created were generating a revenue windfall for Tehran, right up until the blockade. Authoritarian governments have a demonstrated capacity to outlast economic pain. Iran has survived 40 years of Western sanctions. Its leadership answers to no election cycle. America does. Midterm elections are approaching. Gas prices are the single most politically sensitive economic indicator in American domestic politics. Every cent added at the pump is felt in swing states, in suburbs, in the household budgets of exactly the voters who decide congressional majorities. Pakistan continues to call for a second round of talks. The offer is on the table. The clock is running. Here is what this moment teaches us. Oil is not just fuel, it is power. It is politics. It is the invisible force behind nearly every major conflict of the modern era. Control a choke point, and you control the conversation. But block a choke point, and you risk setting the entire system on fire. The Strait of Hormuz is 21 miles wide. The decisions being made around it right now will echo for decades. What do you think? Can diplomacy still pull this back from the edge? Or has the blockade already crossed a line that can't be uncrossed? Tell us in the comments. If you want more untold stories like this, subscribe, because history is never what they teach you in school.